So here we're going to teach you how to do the ScapeFu Dojo so you can practice and become better at aquascaping. All you're going to need is a strip of wood here, really the size of the substrate that you're going to use, and a hacksaw. It's also important to get some pool sand. It's cheap and easy to work with. We don't want to waste expensive substrate. Here's what I spent at Home Depot buying this, $6.85. The most expensive thing was the filter sand. So first take the width of the piece of wood that you're using and then cut that from the end of the strip. This will be important. Here you can see the size of the piece that I cut. We're going to use that to measure. There you can see the strips that we'll end up with and the little piece that we're cutting now. This is how you use it to measure the first cut. Then you just go across to the other side and measure and cut there. Then take that strip and measure out the other 3 strips that will be identical, and this is what you end up with. Now we're going to assemble them just to make sure that everything is working fine. If you cut correctly and measured correctly, you're going to end up with a nice box, just like you see here. There you go. Now take some nails and a hammer and make a box out of it. Screws sometimes work just as well and sometimes better to hold it together. Now take a plastic bag or any sort of plastic and wrap it just like you see here. The idea is to put the pool sand inside of this plastic so that we don't make a mess. Be liberal with it. This is what we're going to be working with. Now get to work. Mold that substrate however you want it. Build the hills. You see the cardboard I put behind it to retain some from the back wall. And now start getting creative with your hardscape. Here, since we're not constrained by any glass that we're going to break or difficulty getting to it, we can be as creative as we want. We can change things around as we want without fear of creating a potentially dangerous situation inside of an aquarium. So creativity is what you want. Be sure to be taking pictures so that you remember, and you'll be able to use, as I show you here at the end in the planting plan. Now, once we're done, it's very easy to fold up the plastic and remove it without making a mess. This makes it spouse approved, very easy, mobile, and we can set it up whenever we'd like. The point here is to be able to practice. Practicing how to aquascape, practicing your hardscape is what makes you better. Let's look at the planting plan. So, here's the hardscape that we put together earlier with the dojo. And now let's see how the planting can be done here, just to get an impression. I pulled up Photoshop. You can use anything, Microsoft Paint, just anything that will allow you to paint. And what I'm going to do here is just create another layer just to make it easy on myself. And I have a brush and the color green, and let's paint a foreground plant. Let's paint some HC. So I'm just going to go around where I'm thinking the HC would go. You don't need to be precise here. We need to do something abstract just to get a visual impression of color mostly and layout of plants. So there you go. As you can see, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Oops. I like to lower the opacity down to 50% whenever I do this. It gives me a better feel for it. And there you go, there's your foreground. Now let's say we want to throw a focal point in the back, some rotala. I'll just switch to a red color, create a new file, a new layer, and let's just put one back here in the third background. So this is giving us a visual representation of where it would likely be. Again, lower the opacity down to 50%, more or less, and there you go. Now let's put some background plants behind it. I'll switch to another green, maybe a darker green, and this time we'll draw around where we're thinking we'd like to place something. Here I'll wrap the focal point, the rotala, with some larger green plants. Okay, there you go. Again, opacity down to 50%. Now let's say we wanted some moss on the stone. We can just go around putting moss where we think it would likely be. And again, just to give us a visual impression, see if we like it. The beauty of being digital is we can remove it down to 50%, and there you go. You know, I'm not loving the moss, so I'll take it away. Create a new layer, and this time maybe some Anubias nana. So let's start creating some midground. Love it when my finger touches the wrong button, but there you go. Just to give us a sense of breaking up the midground here, and some Anubias being put to cover that area where the stone is connecting to the substrate. Okay. Maybe one here, over here as well. So how does that look to you? We're starting to see a visual representation of how the aquarium would be if this were the layout we chose. The beauty of this is that it's not perfect. It's rough enough so that you get an impression, but very easy to just change things around and continue to work on it. Once you're happy with that hardscape, the next step is, where do the plants fall? Where's the focal point? How do I want to plant this out? So really we're doing a planting plan, if you will, without having to draw physically or sit there and play with actual live plants, which obviously would be very detrimental and costly. So that's basically it. Very simple.